There are people who choose to make a positive difference in the world. Our job is to bring you their stories to motivate you to do the same. Join us each week, host John Alexander and Naimah Latif, as we bring you the educators, entertainers, elected officials, religious leaders, and community activists whose works are transforming this world. Find out how you can make a difference too. Be inspired. Watch The Media Connection. We have to change the way we raise the next generation. That's how we change the future. And so, in the process of writing this book, The Female Solution, I looked at what it is that we as women need to do to change the way we raise our children. And of course, I discovered that there's an anger inside of us. How many people know an angry black woman? Always mad. How many of us are an angry black woman? Why are we so angry? We're angry because we have not received love. Because we're living in a society that's been shaped by the younger brother that is out of order with the spiritual law. And so we have a culture that's been created that is hostile toward women. Women who are the givers of life. We're following a cultural attitude that's out of order, imbalanced, and totally anti-God, anti-life, designed to destroy the woman. Because our younger brothers, the ones that's out of order, the Europeans, misunderstood the divine law when they misinterpreted the spiritual law. They took the act of creation, the sexuality, the love between the man and the woman, and made it into something dirty because they misunderstood. And so we're following a belief that teaches us that the act of creation is dirty and the woman, the one who brings life, is sinful and condemned by God. And so therefore, we don't respect the act of love. We don't respect the act of creation. We don't respect the woman. And we don't understand the balance between the male and female. So we have a culture that needs to be corrected, needs to be changed. Because we are all souls inside a body, having a temporary physical experience. And our mission here in coming to this earth is to learn how to love. And that's how we develop into the divine beings that we are. And we've been taught we're made in God's image. What does that mean? The image of the spirit and energy of love. So if you have a teaching, if you have a culture that teaches that women are condemned by God and the first to sin and evil and all of that, then you cannot raise people who have a loving spirit. So that has to be corrected. And it can only be corrected if we change the way we raise our children. But women, in order to give love to the children and teach them those divine laws that our native brothers and sisters tell us we must follow in order to preserve our planet, we must have a culture that enables them to receive love. And we must be able to love each other as women. So we talk about, in our book, The Female Solution, things that females in every species on the planet understand about our role as the life givers. And we give examples of nature and how the animals have learned how to cooperate so that they can fulfill their mission, which of course is to raise the next generation to a healthy adulthood and continue the planet's existence. And in doing that, we address everything from relationships, childbearing, family, and most of all, love, the science of love. Because when you don't receive love as a human being, you develop a spiritual illness, you develop a self-hatred. And that's where disease comes from, and that's where ill behavior comes from. So when we see that the violence in our community, that is the hate that hate produced. When you're angry on the inside and you take it out on that child, and you're angry because the man and the woman, the two halves of the whole, cannot come together and be one unit. And the mother is saying to the child, you're just like your no good daddy. And the father saying, I don't want that woman. I don't even know if that's my baby. So you're damaging the soul of the child that thrives on the spirit of love, because the spirit of love is the spirit of life. And when you damage that child grows into somebody that's self-hating. When you hate yourself, you cannot love others. The scriptures show us that Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. You can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. So we've got to raise children that love themselves, which means we, the women, have to receive love. And we have to have a culture that enables us to be loved. Now, we talk about a bit of a controversy in the female solution, because we say, look at what's happening in our society and the way we as black people have been destroyed by the destruction of our men and the taking of our men out of our homes. And so there's an imbalance in the numbers of men and women, which means that if there are numerically 2, 3, 4 or 5 women to every man, and we know that the love relationship between the male and female is what it takes to bring loving children, then we have to have a culture that enables people to be part of a family, like we had in Africa. But our younger brother, the one who doesn't understand love and doesn't understand life, came to our continent, our countries, and saw many cultures where men had several wives, and they said, oh, this is wrong, because God said. God never said that. God said love. So whatever culture you develop, it's to accommodate your situation. But they would not allow people to have families in slavery, because we were forced to basically create children for the purpose of the market. And so now we come to a place where we need to know how to create families according to a system that enables us to receive love, and we're being told that that's incorrect. So when we talk about this in the female solution, we say, look at nature. Look at how the animal kingdom knows how to create families based on the ratio of male to female. We need to be able to do the same thing, because our children need families. They need the male and the female energy, and we women need to have love so that we can give love to the children. Now, in the process of finishing this book, The Female Solution, my husband wrote the foreword to the book, kind of a message to the men, so they could understand spiritually what needs to happen between men and women. But in that process, he was diagnosed with cancer. And of course, being health enthusiasts, we felt like we can fight this. We're going to pray and eat healthy and all of that. But sometimes things are in your genetic code that cause problems, and even, and of course, with the stress of the society and everything else, sometimes your life ends shorter than you would like. There was a point in his illness where we realized it was terminal. Well, we being people, we've gone all the way back to the past. We've read about the great African civilizations, and we've read about the pyramids being landing pads for a spacecraft, and all of this futuristic thing. How many people watch the Star Trek? Yeah, going where no one has gone before. So we thought, wow. And of course, there are scriptures in the Holy Quran that teaches us that there is life outside the earth. So we said, well, look, you're going to the great beyond, and we're spiritual people. We believe in life after this life. And so when it got to a point where we knew he was leaving this life, I said to him, look, and we've been partners a long time. When you leave here, I want you to find a way to come back and tell me how it is on the other side. Because they always say, well, people die and they can't come back and tell you. I want you to tell me. Find a way to tell me. And it was amazing, because he did. A day or so after the funeral, I began to have visitations from him. First, of course, what we call ghosts, spirits, and then through dreams and my subconscious, and then I actually learned what's called astral projection, your soul leaving your body. And I've since learned that life, the life spirit in us, the soul in us, this is the eternal part that's always been here, and it's always lived and will continue to live. And just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. So what I've learned is that we continue to exist, but just in another dimension. And when people are vibrating at a different rate than you, you can't see them, but they're here. So life continues. And our ancestors in Africa taught that. We had the ceremonies where they would say, let's give honor to our ancestors. They always acknowledged our ancestors. Well, our ancestors are always among us. And so, in Visits from the Dream State, I kept a diary of all the times my husband came to me and spoke. And then the times when he actually was able to physically take me to the dimension where he now resides. And I described it. And after a couple of months, I realized this is actually another book that we're co-authoring, because this is his opportunity to continue to teach to those of us who are spiritual but have questions about our faith. How many people belong to a faith community? Most, yes, any kind. Faith, yeah, any kind, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, see, we get caught up in arguing, but again, there's only one spiritual law that can be summed up in one word: love. And what I discovered was that when you love someone, you vibrate on the same frequency, and you're connected, because love is just the attraction of souls to each other. And I was able to get on that love frequency and contact my husband because we had that connection. And he was able to teach me about the afterlife, How many people heard about heaven, hell, and all of that? Well, I wanted to know. Well, some of the things he told me. The criteria isn't what we think, but it is what all the spiritual masters have told us. It's about your capacity to love. And that's why you're here on this planet, in this time, to learn how to love. And when you leave here, you get like a video of your time here, and you review your experiences, and you're able to evaluate yourself and see, did you learn how to love people in these instances? And when you see that you were not loving, it's a very hurtful thing, because you realize the pain you caused. Now, my husband, he was explaining to me in terms of what happens when you leave here. This is a learning experience. It's a school. Earth is a school where you learn how to become spiritual even in a negative environment. And the negative is here so that you learn how to be positive. But when you leave here, you continue learning. And he actually took me, and I described it, to his classroom. And I'm telling you, they had computers and everything. It was really fascinating. I describe it in the book. But the learning experience is to continue your soul's development. Now, people like Jesus, who we quote a lot, but don't also always understand, he had mastered this level of existence and knew how to love purely. And that's what he kept saying. You too can do this. This is your job, to continue to develop into that loving soul. And when you leave here, if you were sincere in your effort, you'll be able to continue to learn and grow. Now, if you did mean things, you're going to experience some unpleasant situations. But it's really not God punishing you, but you feeling the consequences of your own actions. And this is exactly what we experience on the physical level, the consequences of our actions. So this is why we ended up in slavery, because we did not love each other. This is why we ended up losing the greatness that we had. This is why the Native people ended up losing this great continent, because they were fighting. They did not follow that spiritual law of love. This is why we as women have got to be able to learn how to love again, so that we can give our children back that spiritual law, so that we can continue our journey to the divine. That is our mission for being here. So I am so grateful for the journey that I've been on, that I learned the reason why I exist. The soul inside of you didn't just get here. It has always been here since the beginning. And you have always been on this journey back to the divine, learning that spiritual law of love. And so that's our mission. That's our purpose. And your soul knows that. And that's why when you heard the word on the radio, your soul knew you had chosen to be here at this time for this mission to bring consciousness to the unconscious so that we can restore this world and this planet to the right balance. And we can bring love to the next generation. Now, I don't tell too many people this, but the female solution, what is the female solution? The solution is to raise a better human being. That's our mission. To love each other, to love our children, and bring them back to the love of the divine, so that in 50 years, we have transformed this world into a new society. That's why you're here. And so, my family, let us begin our mission. Peace and blessings to all of you. And so now, we'll have a little conversation about some of the things that you'll read about. Yes, ma'am.
It says we have the ability to love.
But somewhere we lost along the
Somewhere
way.
we lost it along the way.
So we have to rekindle that love within ourselves first.
So we have to rekindle that love within ourselves first
In order to love the next individual.
Yes, that's exactly right. The physical realm that we live in is really a reflection of the spiritual realm. So when you have issues where you don't love yourself, your body responds physically by creating diseases. And that's where disease comes from, some area where you're feeling unloved. And we talk about this in the female solution. Everybody that we see in our world and even in ourselves, they're reflecting energy. And the energy of love is a healing energy. This is why Jesus, who was a healer, was able to heal. The energy of love is what heals sickness. And when you love yourself, you're healthier. When you don't love yourself, you manifest physical illnesses. And in your behavior, you manifest wrong behavior. So things that you do, when you're missing love, you're missing the energy of love, you do things to fill the void, whether it's using drugs or using alcohol or indiscriminate sex or overeating food. You're trying to fill that energy of love because that's a life-giving energy, but you lose that many times because of the way you're raised. And we talk about in the female solution the fact that how you are conceived even affects your ability to love. I used to teach a parenting class in the jails for women who had lost their children because they had been, taking drugs and committing crime, prostitution, whatever. And then the state doesn't give you back your children until you pass a parenting class. And I explained to them that your child feels your emotions even in the womb. So if you got pregnant by somebody that you didn't want to get pregnant by, and you are resenting that child, you're giving that child your resentment while they're developing. That's hurting their soul. They're feeling your anger, your resentment, your rejection, and they come out damaged. They come out traumatized. Now, the thing that was so damaging about the slave experience, when you damage the ability of a woman to be loving and kind, and you damage her ability to give love to her child, what they did to us in slavery was to dehumanize us. The love relationship between a man and woman is meant to produce a child that is enhancing the family. Well, what they did in order to try to create a human being that they could just use as a beast, they had the men to not be able to be a loving husband to a woman. They outlawed marriage between slaves. They said, well, you're not her protector, you're our property. So you cannot marry her, because when you marry a woman, you're saying, I honor and protect you from harm. I love you. And in the sight of God, I'm declaring my commitment to you, to protect you and love you. Well, as a slave, you could not protect this woman. You could not love her. What the owner wanted you to do is simply impregnate her to produce a child that he could sell or have as part of his workforce. So what does this do to the mind of a man? He loses the capacity to feel that affection and that love and that sense of protection for this woman who is bearing his seed, his future, and she becomes a thing, something that used for pleasure. And then, of course, what developed on the slave plantations was a culture where the one who could produce the most children had the highest status. And even the words you use have energy. We weren't called men and women. They gave us names like animals. They called a male a buck and a woman a wench. So you're not even called a name that enlightens your spirit. It's to degrade you and make you feel like less than a person. So look at what we have today. The words that are used to describe women. If you call a woman a female dog, what does that do to her spirit? Look at the words they use to describe the act of creation. Foul words that make you feel dirty. So if you're participating in the act of creation and you're calling it something that's dirty and low, and you're calling the woman something dirty and low, what kind of spirit are you putting into the child that's being created? Not a godly spirit, not a loving spirit. And then if she gets pregnant and she didn't want to be pregnant, what kind of spirit is she sending to that child? A child that feels unwelcome, unloved, like a mistake. So you come out lacking in love, and you're constantly looking for something to fill the hurt and the void, and you turn to things like drugs, alcohol, all these self-destructive things because you're missing love. So we have to even be conscious of the words that we use in describing the love process, describing ourselves. The words we use, because words have energy. So yes, sis, you're exactly right. Yes, question.
When you astral project, are you in the sleep realm, or are you awake? Are you consciously astral projecting? Have you reached that level where you can actually meditate yourself into the state of going to the other dimension?
Yes, I can do it from the waking state. It first started from, it's like you are in a sleep phase and then you awaken to a different state of consciousness and you're awake. And then I've gotten to the point where I can do it. And I describe the stage as actually the point where I decided to, in my conscious stage, meditate and get to the point where I could astral project, and I have been able to do that. Now, because we are spiritual beings, there are spiritual beings all around us that we don't see. And you attract to you what you are. In the physical realm, just as in the spiritual realm. You attract to you who you are, a reflection of who you are. So if you are leaving your body and you're going to the spirit realm, if you are unclean in your spirit, you're going to attract unclean spirits. So this is why this is not something you do if you are a person who is an alcohol abuser or a smoker or somebody who's doing something that's self-hating, because you are, in fact, attracting hateful spirits if your thoughts are hateful. And I got to the point I started researching, I talk about it in the book, started researching, wait, how do you do this? Because there was a point when I really needed to talk to my husband, and I said, okay, there has to have been some research on how to do this. And I went to the internet, and I discovered that you have to purify your body and your mind before you project. You have to purify your thoughts. That's why you have to be conscious of the words you use. Because if you use foul words, you're attracting foul spirits to you. So spiritual people, when you're clean inside, then words that are dirty should not come out of your mouth. And Jesus explained that when he said, it's not what comes into you, but what comes out of you that defiles you. Yes.
My name is Richard Dockett,
Yes, sir.
and I am a native of St. Louis. I came up in a place that still exists. It's called Crossfire Village. And the days when I came up in public housing at Crossfire Village, there's a difference between Crossfire Village public housing and a project. And I'm not knocking either of the two that I came from. I was born in a hospital called Homer G. Phillip Hospital. That was the hospital for the black people where I was born at and all. And all of the doctors, the nurses and everything was there back in the day when I came up in the Ville area and all, they were black. We had money and everything like that. And the living that I lived in, it was like a middle income black person in the U.S. of A. That's where I came from. My friend Charlie Mendy, he said, you just because you got shoes on every day, that don't make that mean that you ain't poor. I never thought like that. I'm wealthy.
That's
I
right.
ain't nowhere about no poor and all like that. Everything that I need that God has given me the provision to do, to keep on breathing the way that I do. Now, when you mention the language and all, you're right on target and all. That's not a part of our culture. You know, going down with all of those vulgar terms and words that
That's
they
right.
use. But I want to thank you with your beautiful self. Because that's
Thank
what
you.
a lot of the African women looked like back in the day. They were slim like you. I'm one of the biggest ones that's around now.
Brother, I know that you are one of those who descended from our great griots who had that gift to be able to speak and tell a story with rhythm. Yes, sir. That's what it is. In psychotrauma, we talk about something called genetic memory. See, even when people try to crush you and make you into a non-person, they can't do it because your life force, the Spirit of God in you, cannot be crushed. And you have within your DNA, within your genetic code, the memory of all of the experiences of your ancestors. So when we know our ancestors had the gift of science and technology and language, all of that is in us. All of that is a part of who we are. So we know that we have that ability, and it's going to always surface in our children. That's why you see these rap artists with the skills that they have. And lastly, in trying to teach, we developed a film because we wanted to teach our young artists that they have a mission with the skill that they've inherited from their foreparents of being able to tell the story of our people and enlighten them using hip-hop, using rap. But they've got to get the knowledge in their heads first. So we created a film called A Hip-Hop Journey with the Ancestors. And it's a story of a young man who's a rap artist, unconscious, but the journey he goes on after he gets into prison and the ancestors come to him and explain, you got to change your thinking. Let us tell you the history and the story of your people so that when you speak, you can give knowledge and you can give life. And so the movie, A Hip-Hop Journey with the Ancestors, will be here December 14th, and we'll be back to show the film. And we're going to make sure we bring our young people in and even have some of those positive, conscious hip-hop artists to give the word, because speech tells a story. And we know in the beginning was the word, the sound, what we heard that gave us life. Join us each week, host John Alexander and Naimah Latif, as we bring you the educators, entertainers, elected officials, religious leaders, and community activists whose works are transforming this world. Find out how you can make a difference too. Be inspired. Watch The Media Connection.